I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Amberley Village Council of Monday, February 12th. Please call the roll.
Richard Bardak.
Here.
Adam Frankel.
Here.
Ben Hunt.
Here.
Keely Paul. Here. Bob Rosen.
Here.
Jay Schatz.
Here.
Dara Wood.
Here.
Scott Larmer.
Here.
Andy Kakey.
Here.
Lieutenant Bloom.
Here.
Claire Eichner.
All right, if you rise and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for being here. The minutes were distributed with the council packet. Is there any comments or questions or changes to those minutes? Hearing none, we will assume that the minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is the finance report, and I'll call on Village Manager Scott Larmer.
Thank you, Mayor. Included in your packet is a memo that reflects what occurred in December of 2023, and that's the report I normally talk about is the monthly report, but also included in your packet is a memo that encapsulates the entire year of 2023. And so that's the document I'd like to speak to this evening, just briefly summarize that. I'll give you an idea of how 2023 shaped up for us. The Finance Committee Finance Committee heard this last week, so I just want to reiterate a few of the points. The revenue for 2023 for the general fund turned out at $6.5 million. We had originally estimated $6.1 million to take in for the year of 2023, but we exceeded that by about $400,000. The most significant portion of that came from the earnings tax. The earnings tax for 2023 was $3.9 million. That is the most that the village has taken in. But I would also want to footnote that because we did have a rather large return that had to be made. And so any documents that we have that show the $3.9 million in earnings tax will be footnoted that we made a refund in the amount of $152,000. We made additional refunds, but this is the most significant refund. And so that does need to be tied to this particular collection year because of the significance of it. So if you factor out that $152,000 because it was refunded, we actually are sitting at about a 6.2% collection rate of earnings tax for 2023 over 2022. So that's an excellent return for the village, even with that one-time refund being factored out. Property tax was very consistent. We had estimated 1.1, and we took in almost $1.2 million. So it was pretty much in line with what we had estimated. That we typically get that information from the county auditor. They are the ones to do the estimations for our property tax. On the expenditure side, the village spent $6.8 million during 2023. This was about a little over 4% greater than what was spent in 2022. So I think the village did a great job of holding the line on expenses because that's, 4.35% in this inflationary period is I think, excellent for the village. And then obviously that $6.8 million that we spent, that's the funding that provides our police, fire services, snow and ice control, any kind of brush chipping, leaf collection, all those services that our residents enjoy was funded through that $6.8 million general fund expenditure. And it also included an expenditure to the police department, a revenue in the police department of almost $2.5 million because we do supplement what the police levy provides for our police department. And I would just like to point out that on the $6.8 million that we spent, there were items in there that were not budgeted in 2023. A couple of those were related to police security with the body-worn cameras that council authorized. In addition to that was the flock cameras, which we've installed throughout the village to improve safety throughout the village. There were some fire supplies that were not budgeted significant that were purchased, and then we did some painting within the building that was not a funded source as well. And then the other thing I'd want to point out in that $6.8 million expenditure is that we transferred $730,000. That's part of that, transferred those to other funds so that we could fund other items for the village, such as our street reconstruction program, also our employee severance fund, and also our capital fund. So those are three funds that we fund and primarily maintain those for purposes outside of that general fund. So most significant was that we did, I think, a great job of keeping a line on the dollars that we spent this year. I did want to talk a little bit more about the refunds, because the tax refunds in 2023 were some of the largest refunds that we've ever experienced. So in 2023, we spent over $240,000 in tax refunds, with the largest one being the $152,000 one. But that is an amount that is not typical for the village to refund. All of this being said, the village ended the year with spending about $322,000 more than what we took in. That's not necessarily a surprise. We had actually anticipated about a $600,000 deficit, but we actually ended up being about $322,000. The reason that we have the ability to do that is because we have a significant unencumbered general fund balance. So we ended 2023 with a balance of $5.7 million. So that $322,000 comes out of that unencumbered general fund balance. And one of the charts that I showed in the document that you have is the reserve fund. So taking it back for the last 10 to 12 years, showing out has continued to progress and get greater. And we continue to have a very strong unencumbered general fund balance. So that includes my report for this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Is there any questions or comments about the manager's report? I would just like to add that, having served on the Finance Committee over the course of the year, that I assume every year has its challenges, but last year was certainly one for the record books in terms of trying to manage expenses in the kind of environment that we found ourselves in. And I think we, under your guidance, we came out as best as could be expected. So you're to be commended on that.
Thank you.
On that.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, we are going to present 2 Employee Service Recognition Awards, and I'll call on Scott to give us some information on those.
I would like to invite Sergeant Brian Baker to come up and ask the mayor to come down here and greet him. We're here this evening to recognize 2 employees for their service anniversaries, one being Sergeant Brian Baker. So Brian began working for Amberley Village in 2014. He was promoted to sergeant, I'm going to say, in 2019. Did I get that right, Brian? Okay, it's 2019. Okay. But Brian came to us with significant experience from the city of Norwood. He was a police officer in Norwood for 10 years. We recruited him here. He came here, and Brian was a police officer, and he came here and he completed his fire training to assume the dual role that our officers hold here. So he completed the 240-hour firefighting training when he came here. Sergeant Baker currently heads our drone team for the village, and he's also a member of a county-wide team that's called out to assist other agencies. And Brian has received several commendations for assisting other agencies, and he's also an active member of our deer calling team. But Brian is married to his wife, Wendy. He has 3 kids, Luke, Ben, and Joe. And Brian is a frequent traveler, and I'm just thrilled that he's here tonight because I think he travels a lot. But he also enjoys being outdoors. He enjoys hunting and enjoys fishing. But Brian is quite an asset to us here in the village, and we're certainly proud to be able to recognize him for his 10 years of service. The mayor is presenting Brian with a certificate and with a recognition pin and also a gift card to recognize Brian for his service and thank him for his service to our residents.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks. Well, our next recognition is someone who's a familiar face, more familiar face to you because it's Tammy Reasoner. Tammy is our clerk of council and the executive assistant to the manager. So Tammy is being recognized for 5 years of service this evening. Tammy began her career in Columbus as a legislative aide for the Ohio House of Representatives, where she served for 3 years. Then she returned to Cincinnati to pursue a career in public relations, and she later served as the director of marketing and communications for her high school alma mater, and did that for over a decade before beginning her work here in Amberley in 2019. And Tammy, an added bonus is that Tammy is a resident here in the village. So she's a 12-year resident of Amberley Village, and with her 5 years of service here with the village, she's managed 2 website redesigns. She's done a complete overhaul of the village print and electronic newsletters, and she has certainly taken an active role on the organizing the annual ice cream social. So then, in addition to her regular duties as clerk of council and executive assistant to the manager, she records all the village legislative action and provides administrative support to staff leadership, village leadership. So Tammy holds a bachelor's and a master's degree in English, as well as a creative writing certificate from the University of Cincinnati. She lives here with her husband, Jeff, who is in the audience, and their oldest child, Casey. And Tammy has their daughter, Claire, is a freshman at Miami University. So Tammy is being recognized for her 5 years of service to the village with a certificate and with a service pin and also a gift card. So Tammy, thank you very much for your service to the village.
The next item on the agenda is the swearing in of our new police officer. That is Officer Christian Russ. I had the opportunity to meet him very briefly about a week ago. I know that the chief spent a lot of time vetting this position, and I can just tell you that Chris is an outstanding young man. He comes to us from Gulf Manor, and we're happy to have him join the force.
Do it now or after? Sergeant Baker is going to be pinning Christian with his badge after he gets sworn in.
Yeah.
Okay, raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I, Christian Russ,
I, Christian Russ,
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States of America,
That I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States of America,
the Constitution and laws of the State of Ohio,
Constitution and laws of the State of Ohio,
and the laws and ordinances of Amberley Village, Ohio.
and the laws and ordinances of Amberley Village, Ohio,
And I will discharge the duties of police officer to the best of my ability.
and I will discharge the duties of police officer to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thanks again.
I was wondering for a second why we had all the policemen here, so now I'm a little more comfortable. I didn't know what was going to, there was a shakedown going on or something. Okay. We are privileged to have here this evening Aranetta Wright, who is the superintendent of the Cincinnati Public Schools, who is here to give Amberley Village Council a strategic review of the Cincinnati Public School plans. So welcome, and we're glad to have you.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, thank you all so much for having me tonight. Just want to thank you for the opportunity to just share a little bit about where we are right now in Cincinnati Public Schools. In December of 2022, we actually approved goals and guardrails at that time. And we worked over the next year almost to identify our strategic plan. And so now we have a board-approved strategic plan that we are beginning to share because it really begins to socialize the work that we're doing in the school district and how we're looking to move our school district forward. Okay, let's see. Okay. I'll have to, okay, let's see. So our overall goals, we have board approved goals and guardrails. Okay, got it. Okay. Well, board approved goals and guardrails. And if you'll notice in the goals that we have, essentially our board went through, and we're continuing to go through a new process, and I really applaud the board for this, called student outcome focused governance, which is a very different way to think about the role of the board and the support and the role of the partner as the superintendent. We identify about 5 goals that we're going to focus on that have student outcomes attached to them. As you look at the goals, some of them are really easy to see what those connections are. We think about reading. Of course, we think about 3rd grade reading. Algebra 1 is one of the areas of focus because it is a gateway course for students. And ultimately, we want to make sure that our students are graduating within 4 years. So those goals are the areas that we focus on. And the thing that makes this really unique is that twice a year, we actually give an update on where we are on those goals. So if you visit our school district's website, we have a monitoring calendar that's on the website, and at each of our two of our board meetings of the month, we have 3 board meetings a month, and at 2 of those board meetings, we actually spend the most of our time talking about what matters the most, and that's student outcomes. That's new, and so I'm really excited about that. At the same time, we also look at our values, or what are called guardrails, and we also monitor the guardrails at the same cadence that we monitor the academic goals as well. And so these actually came from a combination of visits where the school board actually went to the community and asked what was important. So the community shared that after we set the goals are great, but these are the things that we want you to make sure that you look at to ensure that you're not, that you're valuing these things as we're also trying to reach those goals. Most recently, we have an updated mission and vision, not a far cry from where we were before, but just allowing us to codify where we're looking at our work together. And we want to make sure that we are, in terms of our mission, that we are a community of students, educators, families, staff, and citizens working together to provide high quality learning and equitable opportunities that make lifelong learning and true sustainable economic mobility possible for each of our students. And that's our mission as a school district. Our vision, however, is that Cincinnati Public Schools will be a system of excellent schools where each and every student is valued, supported, empowered, and prepared to pursue their fullest potential. So our strategic plan has its basis in of 5 different areas, and from that, there are 5 areas that we focused on. So this allowed us to look at our theory of action, and our theory of action came from stakeholder input. Our 5 strategies guide our decision-making and our way of work in order to achieve our goals and guardrails. Through the implementation of each of our strategies, we will be able to value and support the work of all employees, uplift our student voices in our decision-making, ensure equitable outcomes for all students, continually improve in cultural competency and responsiveness, and be rigorous and transparent in our pursuit of equity. So the 5 areas that we focus on, in no particular order, we have them listed this way, but all of them are equally important. The first that's listed is supporting our students, implementing integrated evidence-based practices for our students, making sure that we are equipping our educators. We know that in order for our students to get what they need, our educators must have what they need. And so that's our second tenet that we look at. Connecting to our community. We recognize that we have a community across the city that is truly vested in what's happening in Cincinnati Public Schools. And so we want to make certain that we continue to connect with that community and the stakeholders because they are present in our students' lives. Ignite innovation, and how do we really collaboratively reimagine our work and initiate new ideas? I think all of us recognize that post-COVID or during the time of COVID, we had to think about educating differently and how we would educate differently. And what have we learned from that time, and what will we continue to utilize from that time so that we can be innovative? And last but not least, optimize operations. I don't think there's anyone in our city that did not hear last year about our challenges with transportation. So we think about why would this be an area, because operations truly becomes the foundation for everything else that we're doing. This year we've had just a major improvement in terms of transportation. We moved from about 80% on-time rate to 96%. The average for urban school districts is right around 90%, so we are exceeding the average. However, it's important that we think about it. We use that one as an example because, again, operations does allow us to, it's the building block for all of the other things that we do. So our strategy 1, each of the strategies is broken down into about 3 or 4 areas that we then have initiatives that go along with each of those areas. And I won't read each of these to you. You have one of the resources in front. I do want to make sure that I leave time for any questions that you have for me. But the first strategy, supporting our students, I do want to call these areas out because here we're looking at evidence-based frameworks that we're working on with our children, equitable experiences, safe and inclusive learning environments, and restorative practices. And restorative practices has really been an area that we focus quite a bit on this year. We have a revised student code of conduct that is really inclusive of restorative practices. We recognize that students do have discipline for the things that they do, but we start with restoration. We want our children to learn from their mistakes so that they don't repeat the same mistakes, and so that they really are able to repair the harm that is done from the choices that they make. And then strategy 2 goes to equipping our educators, and that looks at everything from content to curriculum to well-being of educators to the foundational skills as well as cultural competence. And all right. And connecting our community and school alignment, family engagement, continuing to work with our LSDMCs, and post-secondary partnerships. And so that's one that's truly being elevated for us as we think about our extensions and next steps, especially around career and technical education. Ignite innovation. I talked a little bit about innovation. One of these areas that's huge for us right now is also high school transformation. Right now, over 60% of our elementary schools across the district are rated a 3-star or higher by the state. You may recall at one point the state had an A to F system, and so an A was an A, which would be equivalent to 5 stars. And an F, we know what that was. So a C is a 3-star, so over 60% of our elementary schools as of this year are 3-star or higher, and a third of our high schools are 3-star or higher. So we have some work to do in our high school area, and we continue to raise the bar and the expectation for our elementary schools as well. I will say that that is an increase in terms of the percentage of schools that have shown improvement since the last time there was grading of the schools in 18-19, and that's an exciting time for us as well. And last but not least, optimizing operations. So this covers human resources, transportation, resource equity, and sustainable systems. So there are a lot of different opportunities to be present. I am really active in the community. I have been since I started. I started May 2nd of 2022. I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary. Happy birthday to me on May the 2nd. And it feels like dog years, right? 2 years. But there are opportunities. Our students are present every day. This became our call to action in transitioning into the district, because everyone has a way that they can be present and support our students. Many of you are supportive of our students in our schools right now, whether you're on an LSDMC, whether you visit or volunteer. And so we really wanted to make sure that we understand that this is a call to action for our community. There's a lot that has to be done for our children, and we cannot do it in isolation. So if we look for different ways to be present, we can be present in person. That means we volunteer, we mentor, we go to schools, we see what assistance is needed. We can be present in thought. You know, I have encountered some individuals that say, my time has passed to go and volunteer and tutor. What else can I do? You can think about us as students are on their way to the bus stop. You can step out and encourage them to have a good day as they're going to the bus stop. You can encourage them to make great choices. You can encourage them to be nice to one another. So you can continue to do that. Encourage them to play when you see them, and encourage them to be active, because that's something else that's really important for our children. And of course, there's financial support. And so if there are different initiatives that you would like to support, whether that's at the school level or whether that is at the district level, there is a way for you to do that. So we do ask everyone when we do one of these presentations to consider taking the pledge. There's a QR code right here. And this is just pledging to be present for the students in Cincinnati Public Schools. The upcoming things that are happening in the district, this looks like we didn't get the updated one to you. Okay, so we already had our expo. We're excited about that. That was on the 27th. That's where we were at the Cintas Center. We have already outgrown the area that we were at the Cintas Center. We had over 1,200 families that came out and participated. It was a really wonderful experience, and all of our schools were represented. The next thing that we have coming up, we have a Black Male Educator Summit that is starts Friday, February the 23rd, and it ends on February the 24th. It is a Midwest Black Male Educator Summit. We are looking to not just recruit Black males into education, but to retain them in education. So yes, it is about Cincinnati Public Schools, but more importantly, it is about the Midwest. So we have individuals coming from all over the Midwest, some as far away, Chicago, Detroit, Michigan, other parts of Michigan, and right here close to us in our other cities in Ohio. So we're excited about that. And the last is we will have our recruitment fair for teachers in April, the second weekend in April. Last year, we were able to recover based on our pre-pandemic numbers for our recruitment fair. And so we had over 500 teachers that came out to that event. We hired about 342 new teachers last year. So we're excited about those things. So that is where I will stop. I know I have limited time, and I do want to honor and respect the time. But if it is appropriate at this time to open up for questions, is that appropriate, Mayor?
Certainly, that's, it looks like a lot of work and thought went into this document, and it looks like the school system is in good hands under your leadership.
Thank you.
And we wish you every success. Is there any questions or comments from council? It was a very thorough presentation. Go ahead, Councilman Shea.
First of all, thank you for coming to our meeting. Since Pleasant Ridge Montessori is the equivalent of our neighborhood school, and not to put you on the spot, I know you have hundreds of schools, but what is the construction there going to mean for families in our community?
Thank you for the question. So it means a couple of things. The first, and the construction is scheduled to be completed by September the 30th, based on the information that I have right now. It means that there's more space. So when you visit Pleasant Ridge Montessori is a neighborhood school, unlike our other Montessori programs where students have to apply to go into the school. At Pleasant Ridge, if they move into the neighborhood, it's a full neighborhood school. So that means every child that is in the neighborhood has access to the Montessori programming. That alone causes some challenges in terms of space, and so it gives more space at the school for students to be involved in the programs. There have been, through our ad hoc committees, there have been some different questions about whether or not all students that engage, that are from the neighborhood, if they need to have another option for where they may be able to go to school, if the Montessori program is not one that speaks to them specifically. And so that's something that we're looking at working on with families for this year, because there are some that move into the neighborhood. They've never had access to any of the Montessori work. And so coming in, especially depending on what grade it is, can be a little challenging for the students. So that's something that we're trying to work on right now with the next location that students would be able to attend if they chose not to go the Montessori route. But it does give more space, more classroom opportunity.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments for the superintendent? Thank you so much for being here. We'll look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
As these goals get achieved.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now move on to the committee reports. I don't have anything from finance, so we'll go with Health, Education, and Welfare Committee.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. At our last Health, Education, and Welfare Committee meeting, I reported back from the We Thrive Committee, and they were wanting really to see the village get involved in doing something around the topic of food insecurity. And so they had brainstormed several ideas, hoping to find maybe down the road a specific project that they could get maybe a group of residents to do. It might be preparing meals, serving, volunteering somewhere. So they're working on that. And as well as other ideas that kind of came up were perhaps we could incorporate something with food insecurity into the one-stop shop or the ice cream social. So the members of the committee are speaking to the people that are in charge of those events to see if perhaps there can be a way to include collecting, having people bring some non-perishable items and things to that. So that's kind of in process, and we're waiting to kind of communicate back and forth to see if that will work out. And so the HEW committee did support these ideas, and we'll continue to get updates from the We Thrive committee as they continue to work on this. Next, we have a vacancy on the Human Rights Commission, and Jim Boney, who has been on the commission for a few years, his term was to end at the end of 2024. It was a 3-year term, and he has vacated that a little early. So an Amberley resident, Jimmy Boland, applied for the vacant spot and spoke with the HEW committee. He's an artist and a longtime resident of about 20 years in Amberley Village, and has done much volunteer work over the years, some art-based and some not, but working with a variety of ages and sharing his love of art. And he wanted to give back to the committee, and so I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Jimmy Boland to fill the vacant spot on the Human Rights Commission, with his term to end at the end of 2024.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the council approve the appointment of Jimmy Bolden for the Human Rights Commission. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The appointment carries unanimously.
And that concludes my report, unless
Thank you
there's
very
any
much.
other questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We now have a report from the Health, Education, and Welfare Committee. I'm sorry,
That was
Public Buildings and Parks Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. We met on February 1st to discuss the replacement of the last of the 3 HVAC units on the roof. Just to give you a little bit of background, across the last couple of years, all of these HVAC units have come to the end of their useful life. So, sorry, I'm getting table talk. So we replaced 2 of the 3, and the final one, which also has just recently had some repair work last year, is up for replacement. Please bear in mind that all of these units were put in 1999, 2000, when the building was constructed and then occupied. So they've been up there a long time. So also one of the nice things about the new units is they're much more efficient than the old units. So this is the final one, and I have Resolution 2024-3, which authorizes the village manager to get into a contract with Bachman HVAC for the replacement of the final unit. So I'd like to make a motion.
Second.
It's moved and seconded that the council adopt Resolution 2024-3, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Bachman HVAC Solutions for the replacement of the HVAC unit on top of the municipal building. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Please note that the resolution passed unanimously. Now turn to village manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to highlight 3 items out of the manager's report. The first being the natural gas aggregation. The village has certainly received a lot of phone calls about this particular program, and so residents may be contacting you as well. This is sort of a very different turn of events. Typically, our aggregation program is very attractive, but this year, the natural gas aggregation program is actually not attractive as it exists right now. The reason for that is that the national aggregation rate that we have is much higher than Duke's rate right now. This stems from almost a year and a half ago when we went through the process to select a natural gas broker. The village selected a firm, and we went forward with assumptions that there was going to be a certain demand and supply of natural gas. It turns out that the demand actually decreased, so the rate started going down after we committed to our rate. Our rate is a fixed rate at 0.869, and that was established. And for a few months, we were beneath Duke's rate, so it was working as proposed. But then, as those rates continued to fall, and certainly we've had a warm winter, except for the Arctic blast last month. So right now we're still sitting in a situation where Duke's rate is lower than ours. So our rate of 0.869 is not comparing favorably to Duke's rate, which is 0.58. So there's a significant difference there, and that is impacting homeowners on the gas side. There's the option that residents have is to opt out of the program. They do have an option to do that. It's coming at a time, though, when we're exiting the heating season. I mean, we're almost into a shoulder month here next month where the heating will not be as significant. So residents are not going to actually realize a whole lot of savings by getting out of the natural gas program at this point right now. I know some of our residents, and we have advised some residents to just go ahead and opt out. This program will run through October of this year. Prior to that, we will evaluate where we're at, where the market is. I think one thing that we've always noted on aggregation programs is the market is not like buying salt or buying a truck or any of those types of things. You've got a lot of factors that go into the gas market that we have no control over, and not necessarily some foresight on some of that stuff. But we will evaluate whether we want to renew our natural gas aggregation program in the fall. But residents do have the option. If residents have questions, I would encourage them to call the administrative office. And if you have residents that approach you about this, feel free to answer their questions or have them call us as well. But there is the option of getting out of the program, or residents can just live through it, and we'll be into a new season next year as it relates to natural gas. The information was communicated in the January e-news, so that information did go out and is in front of residents, but just wanted to point this out in case you do get more inquiries about this. And then the second item I wanted to mention was in regards to potholes. It seems like with the Arctic temperature we had last month and the extremely warm temperatures we have this month, we've had a plethora of potholes develop on a variety of streets throughout the village. Certainly those of you that travel Galbraith Road have seen quite a few potholes there. Ridge Road has not been absent from that as well. But our maintenance department has been out patching the potholes. I did want to point out the one thing that we were able to do is we borrowed a hot box from the city of Mount Healthy. A hot box actually keeps asphalt hot, and it gives you much better adherence when you're putting down that kind of aggregate in a pothole. And there's a much better chance that it will stay in the pothole as opposed to cold patch, which can actually be thrown out of the pothole depending on how a car hits it and how much moisture is in that pavement area. But the maintenance department has been doing quite a bit of pothole repair. And once again, we would encourage residents, if they are aware of potholes that have not been addressed by the village, that they let us know, because we will take care of those. We also did quite a bit of patchwork up at the parking lot at Amberley Green as well. So we have been taking care of quite a few potholes this last month. And then the last item I mentioned is the Hamilton County property tax, because we are getting calls about that. When we do receive calls about the Hamilton County property tax and the valuation, we do refer those to the Hamilton County auditor or the Hamilton County treasurer, depending on what somebody's inquiry is. But I think we're all aware that the valuations throughout the entire state, the entire country, have increased. So property values have increased. While it doesn't necessarily translate into an increase in your property taxes, for the most part, it does. It's difficult to explain how property taxes are calculated for Hamilton County. I think Hamilton County Auditor's Office does a good job of communicating what makes up the property tax throughout Hamilton County, because there are quite a few entities that get funded through Hamilton County. We are one of the recipients, but certainly the Cincinnati Public Schools is the largest. They typically receive about 67% of the property tax that a resident pays here in the village. And then from there, there's just a variety of other levies that, for the most part, residents have voted on, like the zoo. That's one of them. The Hamilton Great Parks. Our police levy is one of them as well. So we will realize some of the increase in that property value. But on our police levy, we do not receive any additional money on the police levy. That was set when you put it on the ballot. You set it at $1.3 million. It will not increase any greater than $1.3 million during our 5-year period of the police levy. But once again, if residents have questions, feel free to refer them to us, and we will get them into the right place. We actually met with a resident this morning who had some concerns about that, provided them the information, but also connected them with the Hamilton County Auditor's Office. So that concludes my report, Mayor. Thank you.
Any questions or comments on the village manager's report? Councilman Hunt?
I just had one quick, not even a question, but a thank you, Scott. I noticed the number of 2 grants that were awarded. I think kudos to your staff on both the $10,000 grant for fire radios and then an additional grant for body-worn cameras for the police department. So I might be taking some of the police report thunder right now, but congratulations on both of those.
Great. Thank you.
Scott, if a citizen opts out of the aggregation program, can they get back in at some point? Or
Yes, it is an opt-out program, so you can go out of it at any time, but you also have to opt in to it if you have opted out. Okay. So what would likely happen if the resident opts out right now, they'll sit out, they'll go automatically to Duke unless they choose a different supplier. But when it comes time to promote the aggregation program in the fall, assuming we have an aggregation program for natural gas, they will need to opt in to the program.
Right.
Yes.
And if you've opted in, you're in until you opt out.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
And I just want to clarify that this is only the natural gas program where we're having this issue. Our electric aggregation program is very solid and is beneficial to residents, so it does not. The same, what I described on natural gas does not apply to our electric program.
Okay. Any other questions and comments for the manager? Now on call on Lieutenant Bloom to give the chief's report.
Yes, I just have like to address something that we've already addressed a couple of times in the past, maybe just a little bit of an update, not any specific details, but regarding the burglaries we've had involving the South American gang. Currently, we have a total of 8 suspects and charges pending, I believe, on 7 of them. One of them is in custody up in Connecticut currently. A number of them are still on the run. Most of them have charges pending in additional states between here and New York and even down towards Florida. And a lot of that's through investigation, communication with other agencies, things that our detective has identified through his resources and research and evidence that we've gathered and communicated with other agencies. So we're moving forward with that. It's a long process, and it's a national problem, and I know that locally here we're organizing a task force that's involves multiple agencies at different levels all the way up to the federal government. So just a small update on that. Additionally, we have had another burglary that most people are aware that was not related to this gang, and we're still working on that and actually receiving some additional evidence very recently. So we're moving forward with some other investigation techniques involving that burglary as well. So just wanted to give an update on where we stand with those. We have not, knock on wood, had any recent burglaries again. So that concludes my report.
Any questions or comments for Lieutenant Bloom?
I was just going to ask Lieutenant Bloom, what's the advice from the police department as far as burglaries? How can citizens best protect themselves?
We would continue to say what we've said before. You know, the main thing is obviously lock your doors. If you have an alarm system, use your alarm system. Don't leave your keys in your car. Don't leave, you know, if you leave your car in the driveway, don't leave your garage remote in your car. It's a lot of the basic lighting. Don't leave, this is a big one, you know, at night. People do walk through this community, and there's no street lights per se. So any lights that you can leave on your house or on your property is good. A lot of times, historically, in our community at least, and probably most communities, when people are doing that and they look in your window, if they see a purse on the kitchen table, it takes them about 15 seconds to knock the window, grab the purse, and leave, or computer or anything else that has monetary value that they would be looking to steal. And again, we keep putting this in the newsletter, and Tammy does a fantastic job trying to blast this out to the residences. If you see something, say something. We would much rather respond to 10 calls that end up to be nothing and not get a call on something that could have been something. So a number of the community cameras now have been very beneficial to us. A lot of people have Ring doorbells or other cameras on their house. It's nice that we know that if you do have that, because if say a burglary happens down the street, we like to check everybody's camera on the street, because chances are they walked through, drove through, whatever the case is. But those are the main items to protect yourself, protect your property, and keep yourself from being a victim, I think. You know.
Good.
Sure. First, just want to give personal thanks. We had an incident at our house, and just want to echo and say thank you to the police and EMS, because it's why you live in Amberley, and the response is phenomenal. So just want to give the personal thank you. And a question, I don't know, can you give a little more update on the flock cameras? Have they been useful? It was mentioned earlier, you know, the money that was spent in certain streets, adding them. Just wanted to understand how they're beneficial to the community.
Okay, so involving our the South American gang, you know, if we can identify a car, or Indian Hill identifies a car, or somebody in Indiana identifies a car, that system we connect with everybody that's in that system. So let's say Carmel, Indiana has a burglary and they say, hey, it was this white car and this was the license plate. Then that car can get flagged. And if it drives into Amberley Village, hits one of our cameras, then we're notified. Or Indian Hill's notified if it drives through Indian Hill and hits one of their cameras. Stolen cars, if they drive through, they can alert as well, like, hey, the stolen car drove through Section and Ridge 30 seconds ago, or whatever the case is, and it's this license plate. So it helps in tracking, and I mean, it's for the intelligence side of it, especially to notify everybody, hey, be on the lookout for this car. And I mean, we do have the LPRs as well, but that the flock system is sitting there 24/7, and you know, if you can cover all your intersections, base entry, exit points of the village, it really is beneficial to us as far as investigations and knowing when somebody comes into the village to say, hey, you know, this car was last seen in Forest Park and they stayed down, you know, in Roselawn last night. You know, it helps us to say, hey, we're on the lookout for this car. And it just gives us another set of eyes, essentially, because, you know, with 2 or 3 policemen on the road, we can't be everywhere at once, but those cameras are there, like I said, 24/7, so it's very beneficial in that aspect of it. Thank you.
Lieutenant, I would just like to add, I know that the Amberley Police Department took a leading role in the apprehension of some of those South American criminals that were picked up in Connecticut as a result of the work that was done here, so you are to be commended on that. Also the work that you're doing on the present burglary that you're still working on. I know the amount of man hours we've spent on that is just outstanding. Right. And it's been, it hasn't been easy. It's been just dogged, hard police work, and the number of hours that have been put in. So again, you are to be commended on that, and it's another reason I'll just reiterate what Councilman Franco said, that it's one of the reasons we all live in Amberley Village. We're proud of our police department and the work you do.
Thank you very much for saying that.
Okay, any other questions or comments for the lieutenant? Okay, the mayor's report. You have in front of you a very large sheet of paper with the number of, with the list of all the independent boards that the village has, and the number of appointments that are done by council and done by mayor. Do I have to go through each one of these, or can we just adopt the document? Okay. So in your document, you have this list of all the boards, the independent boards and whatnot. All of those names that are outlined in blue are appointments that are coming up that have expired as of the end of 2023. And in some cases, they're 4-year appointments. In some cases, they're 2-year appointments. That's under the column where it says the term expires. Fortunately, all the individuals that were currently serving on those boards have agreed to continue to serve, so we haven't had to do any recruiting. So if I could have a motion to approve all of the council appointments that are listed on this sheet.
So moved. Motion to approve the Amberley Village boards and commissions.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting or approving all the council appointments as of that are on this sheet, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. In addition, there is a light green highlighted appointments, and those are the mayor's appointments. And I don't need a motion to approve those. I can do those on my own, but just for council's information, all those in green, it's mostly the environmental stewardship group, are hereby appointed. I have one last item, and I want to announce for council to be aware that the one-stop drop for the spring is going to be April 28th. It will be from noon to 3 p.m. at Amberley Green. I'm sure you'll be hearing more about that in the future, and you'll be asked to volunteer. And if you are at all available to do that, I would suggest that you volunteer. Is there any new business? Hearing none, we are going to go into executive session, and for the purposes of reviewing the village manager's performance report for 2023. Please note that the time of the executive session was 7:24. We will reconvene at the end of that session.
Mayor?
I will note for the crowd that we will not be doing any other business when we come back.
Mayor, we also need to have a motion and a vote to adjourn.
Oh. We need a motion to go into executive session? Yes. Can I have a motion that we go to executive session?
Motion for executive session.
Second. All those in favor?
What, he has to be a roll.
For the purpose of reviewing the manager's appraisal for 2023.
It's a roll call vote.
Roll call.
Roll call vote.
Roll call vote. It's a good thing we rehearsed this, by the way. Please call the roll.
Thank you. Richard Bardak. Adam Frankel.
Yes.
Ben Hunt.
Yes.
Keely Paul.
Yes.
Bob Rosen.
Yes.
Jay Schatz.
Yes.
Dara Wood.
Yes.